So, when did counseling stop being about problem solving? Well, not anymore. Introducing solution-focused counseling with the Unlicensed Counselor. And now, here's your host, Steve Moak.
Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the Unlicensed Counselor. My name is Steve Moak. I am the Unlicensed Counselor, and as always, so grateful to be here on a little overcast day in Scottsdale, Arizona. If you're watching on video today or on YouTube, be on the lookout for some lightning strikes in the background. I think that means we're going to be bringing the heat this episode. So, you know what? We love these kind of days out here in the desert. We always need a little bit of rain, and it's just we get this monsoon season getting ready to kick in, and it is really a beautiful, kind of cool time to be out here. So bring it on. But, got some fun stuff I want to talk about. Had a couple thoughts. Shocking, I know, to those of you that listen to me with any regularity. You know, a lot of the topics come from things in my personal life, things that are going on, and this one's no different, right? So, you know, the thought has been over the last week as I'm doing the show prep is, you know, healed people versus folks who maybe are not healed, who are kind of stuck with some pain, right? So, you know, I'm not going to call any one particular person out, but let's just say you have an ex-wife, for example, and maybe that person still kind of communicates in a way that can be challenging and frustrating and maybe kind of stuck in those same patterns. Now, I know it's going to sound self-serving to say, well, are you the healed person then, Steve? Well, I'd like to think so. You know, 2 years post-divorce, and when someone puts in the time via counseling, via eating better, via therapy, journaling, exercise, kind of taking time to themselves and not really trying to break the patterns that had been developed over the years, I'd like to think that I've done that, right? And look, I'm not perfect. That's certainly not what I'm trying to portray here. But I definitely have seen myself in kind of the healing path. And look, for any of those, again, that have listened for an extended period of time, I think you've probably heard some of this journey, to be honest with you, over the last year and a half. And I don't know how many dozens or 100 episodes that we've done here at the Unlicensed Counselor. So I've had some thoughts just around, you know, kind of what is a healed person. And again, take me out of the equation. This is just kind of what sparks my thought process on some of these topics. And then maybe a person who is not healed or is maybe stuck in some of those same ways. And I just want to talk about that and maybe how those people can interact, why maybe they are resistant to change or why they are not healing. So let's just pull that thing back a little bit. And I want to challenge you as the audience and really to you guys, and I know we got a lot of guy listeners out there as well too. Do you think after you listen to this episode, do you think you're the healed person? Or do you think you are still maybe that challenged person, that hurt person who are stuck in some of those same patterns? And maybe you're somewhere in between. But as you're going through this, and as I kind of go through some of these points by points, think of who you are now, listen to the episode, and then think about who you may or may not be towards the end of this. So just a thought experiment as you kind of go into this episode. So, okay, now we're going to dive into all that fun stuff, but before we do, I want to continue to say thank you to our friends over at ShareTech. Go to betterdrugtest.com if you need an at-home drug or alcohol screen. You know there's only one test the Unlicensed Counselor recommends, and that is the ShareTech drug test. It's the industry-leading at-home drug or alcohol screen. It's performed by a lab, but done with the privacy of your own home. Go to betterdrugtest.com, pick up one of those tests, and we'll send it directly to your front door. And next thing I like to plug is the nonprofit work that I do at thestopstartshere.org. This is a youth drug abuse prevention campaign. What we do is social media messaging around drug prevention. That's it. We're not running assemblies. We're not doing all these other things. We don't have big fancy offices. We spend all of the money, the donations that we get from you, directly on social media creative. It's hard-hitting. It is really impactful stuff. So give us a follow at Hard Stop Official, but check us out at thestopstartshere.org. And then last shameless plug for myself, too. Give the Unlicensed Counselor a follow on all the social channels that are out there. YouTube's starting to pick up some team. We post a ton of clips on Instagram, on Facebook. We're on TikTok now. Give us a follow at the Unlicensed Counselor. You can find me on any of the regular social channels as well, too. And again, I've seen the numbers. They continue to go up month over month. Really appreciate the support. And if you can, continue to share these episodes with the friends, and feel free to ever shoot me a note or comment on social media as well. Love to engage with everybody as well, too. So, okay. It's tough when you feel like you've put in the work to really try and deal, and I'm not necessarily talking about traumas necessarily. Now, can it be traumas? Absolutely. But these can be things that are just hard instances in your life that you have either kind of moved past in a healthy way, meaning you've addressed them, you've worked through them, you've thought about them, you've given time and energy into this, you've made conscious efforts to break those patterns that were maybe leading you down in these same ways before. And when you're engaging with somebody and maybe you're in a relationship and one person has really gone down kind of this healing path, as I like to call it, and the other person's kind of staying stuck in that thing, it becomes really challenging to kind of get sucked into that world as you're trying to better yourself, and this other person's almost pulling you back at every single day. So I just want to dig into kind of some of the traits of what a healed person looks like. So again, as you go into this episode, think about who you think you are now, and after you hear all this, maybe who you think at the end of the episode as well, too. So let's start with kind of more of a healed person, maybe somebody who's matured a little bit over the time of kind of dealing with whatever issue that it is. So the first thing that came to my mind was emotional stability, right? They exhibit better control over their emotions and respond calmly to stressful situations. I've shared this many times. I used to go from 0 to anger in a split second. And I have found, whether it's through the healing process, in counseling and therapy and all those types of things, or even being a dad to a little one, especially a little girl, and understanding, and even seeing myself in a past life, like, how could you ever get that angry at something so innocent and young and things like that? So, really having that emotional stability, I think, is one of the number one signs of someone who's really started to heal themselves over time. Now, the next thing that came up in my mind was the idea of self-awareness. They have kind of a clear view and understanding of their strengths, their weaknesses, and their triggers. This takes time to kind of really sit and sort out and have some thoughts around, hey, what is the thing that sets me off? Why does that set me off? How could I not let that certain thing set me off? And sometimes you can work through them on your own, but sometimes those are things you're going to have to bring up to your therapist, to your counselor as well, too. Little things. I used to get super annoyed when I have to repeat myself all the time, and it's like, and you go, and then a little comment happens, and you kind of unload on somebody. It's like, okay, like what? That didn't elicit that type of response, right? So being aware of those types of things so you can kind of, again, become a little healthier person in your communication skills. The next thing that I've noticed in kind of this healing journey, I know it sounds a little corny, but it's truly what it is of kind of mending, who you were and becoming a different person, is how much healthier my relationships are, right? And I'm not just talking boyfriend, girlfriend. I have not, I've not had boyfriend, girlfriend since I've been divorced. I've dated and things like that, but certainly nothing significant along the way. But the healthy relationships with my daughter, with my family, with my friends, with, even when I go out and do, on dates and different things like that. I feel like I'm able to maintain a much healthier, balanced, and kind of mutual respect and trust with just the people I interact with on a regular basis. I care a little bit more about what's going on, genuinely care about what's going on in their life, and I'm a much better listener. So it's just, I have found those things where maybe I was a little more self-serving in kind of the unhealed version of myself, going into much healthier relationships now in kind of this new and improved version, if you will, of myself as well. So another thing that I had thought in kind of this more positive side in this path is kind of the resilience that has come from this process, right? So being able to bounce back from setbacks and challenges, but not just bouncing back, but having a positive outlook going forward as well, too. In a previous, you could just beat yourself up you get down on yourself and the negative self-talk and all these things that are kind of going on. And it's like, I feel like I've built that and I've always felt I have a pretty strong kind of, wiring around resilience. But even more so after you've tested yourself. And by the way, it is again tested myself as a person who's going on almost 10 years sober on top of all these things as well too. It's not like you go through a divorce and I get to turn to the bottle. I gotta face life on life's terms. I don't just get to go pick up a joint or pick up a drug and pick up something that's going to numb me out, right? So the resilience of being able to hit these things head on and stay positive. Am I positive every single second of every day? No, let's be realistic. But there is a sense of like, hey, I know this is hard. This sucks now, right? But this isn't what it's going to be like forever. Let's learn from this and let's keep moving forward. And that's a different skill set that I think I've built up over the last few years. And that positive outlook, I tend to carry that into most areas of my life now. And I practice the gratitude that goes along with it. If you notice, again, if you listen to the show, I open every single show, not accidentally, and kind of talking about gratitude. I'm always so grateful to be here because I'm grateful to be here. It sounds stupid, but as somebody who's been in places in their life where didn't exactly like where I wasn't exactly proud of the person I was, to be able to sit here in a studio and kind of share this to the thousands of people that will listen to this, that's pretty neat. That's pretty neat. So just carrying that positive outlook kind of through this healing process. And what I've also found is that my communication is much more effective. And I think one of the number one reasons why my communication is much more effective is, I'm not taking things as personal as I used to, and I'm not going 0 to angry if something doesn't go my way in a split second as well, too. I'm more able to kind of communicate my needs and my feelings to the people around me. Am I perfect at this? No, far from it, but much better, and this is why I keep calling it a healing journey. It's not like I get to the end, I'm like, yep, finished it, did it, completed, I'm money now. No, this is just stuff that I keep working on day in and day out, and what do you know, a couple years later, you're like, oh, wow, nice, pleasant, happy, positive, all these types of things, which leads me into the next point is, this healed kind of version can have some more accountability. They can take more responsibility for their actions and learn from their mistakes, right? It was so easy to kind of blame out there externally and always be focused on the things that were not going right in my life and to point those fingers. Now I have a sense of accountability. It's like, if you didn't do it, it's on you, buddy. I mean, who else are you going to be able to blame for all these other things? If something's not getting done, it's not your daughter's fault. It's not your parents' fault. It's not your ex-wife's fault. It's your fault. So again, these things that have come along with this new and improved version, so to speak. And the last point I had on kind of the healed version of people is the self-care. And this is one that I've done candidly a great job on, of working on the mental, emotional, and physical well-being. And they go together very strongly. I put a lot of time and effort into the physical side through running, through lifting, through the hot yoga, which again, I was there this morning and absolutely love it. It just sets my day off right and gets my mind right. And honestly, I started with the physical part of the hot yoga and ended up with just how, call it the spiritual, call it the mental side of it, and how much it benefits me in my life. But the self-care and getting the exercise right, focusing on the diet, making sure that the sleep is there, making sure that I'm taking the time for myself and that I'm in a good headspace, and when things are coming up, dealing with them versus pushing them off. That takes work. It takes daily work, but it's part of this new version that I'm proud to say really helps shape you out to just a much healthier, happier person in general. Well, that's the good side of this, right? Now, we said we're going to talk about the healing and then the unhealed parts. Now, could you just say that the converse of all those things? Probably, but let's dig into it a little bit deeper as well, too, and see if any of these sound maybe like somebody you might know in your life. Little quick point before you go throwing stones after you hear this episode or sharing this episode saying you need to listen to this, and especially that second section on the unhealed part. Let's not just attack people for this. Let's just think about how we can have healthy conversations around this as well, too. I don't want this episode to create more stress in your life or to create some type of fights or anything like that. But let's dig into kind of what the unhealthy side or the unhealed person may or may not be like, right? So emotional instability, right? So they are often reactive, easily angered, overwhelmed by emotions where they just kind of surge, right? And it's like they have no control over what's going on, what's being said, and it's just reaction. And that could be anger, that could be over talking, that could be all over the place. I've had these conversations where they're just scattered. I remember some people I'm talking to that repeat the same thing over and over again. Like they're just kind of all over the place. And I'm just going, like, I feel like I'm dodging and weaving trying to keep up with this conversation. And I'm just like, are you mad? Are you angry? Are you sad? Like, what's going on here? So those are people potentially who are just kind of stuck in look, let's also be a little sympathetic potentially towards these folks as well, too. They may have had something seriously impact them that they just haven't healed from. So I don't want to be mad at any of these folks, but I do want to make sure that we understand that, there might be some of the emotional instability due to something. Doesn't excuse their behavior. I'd like to see people work on it, but let's just make sure that we're kind of calling things what they are as well, too. And number 2 on the list would be lack of self-awareness. So they struggle to understand their own behaviors and motivations, right? So it's kind of that lack of thought that they're giving to themselves, to why they're doing what they're doing. Again, they can be stuck in these patterns, and it doesn't make sense to someone who's kind of looking at it on the outside. And it's like, why would you keep continuing to do that pattern or that thing? It doesn't seem like it's serving you, but yet they're just stuck in it and keep doing it. And it's like, I don't understand. So just the lack of being able to almost step outside of themselves and look at themselves and going, is this really serving me? Is this working? That lack of self-awareness is really somebody who's probably not started that healing process potentially as well, too. And number 3 on my list, toxic relationships, right? I mean, an unhealed person, it almost seems to attract that toxic relationship as well, too. I've heard Dr. Drew say many times, your picker's broken, right? And when you're that unhealed person and your picker's broken and you keep getting into these relationships with the people who are going to kind of foster this kind of toxic thing, right, that's back and forth. So they're just going to engage and perpetuate in unhealthy relationships. And you know why they're unhealthy a lot of times is poor boundaries, right? So you're going to seek these things out, and there's no boundaries in these relationships, and you just repeat the same patterns over and over again, and then expect a different outcome, right? We all know that phrase, the definition of insanity. If you haven't, you've heard it here and now, but I'm sure that you have. The next one I came up with on the list was low resilience, right? So they have difficulty recovering from setbacks and may remain stuck in these negative patterns. I see this all the time. It's frustrating when you care about someone, you see that they're not intentionally self-harming or self-sabotaging, but they're just stuck. And things go as they go, and they always go, and work is busy, phones ringing, emails, kids' schedule, and I get it. Life can be hard and challenging, especially as single parents and things like that. Like, it's tough. But if you're going to just stay in that pattern when there are options to at least maybe improve on it, tweak things slightly, and then you get mad or snap at someone when maybe they offer a way to help or a suggestion that they could, that may mitigate or help reduce some of the stress that goes along with this, it's tough. It's a tough position to be in. I feel bad for the people who get stuck there. But me coming in and trying to change this as a healed person, what I found in my own experience doesn't land well. You're controlling, you're manipulative, you're trying to do this, that, and the other thing. So it's like, I got to know my boundaries, and that's one where I'm like, if asked, I will offer, but I'm done just kind of putting my 2 cents into these things because I don't want to get my head bit off, right? And again, the next thing is they do have that negative outlook oftentimes, that when you're that unhealed kind of angry, kind of bitter person stuck in these same patterns, I mean, how could you not really have a negative outlook? I get it. I feel bad for you. When I get angry at someone nowadays, I try and shift that anger to a little bit more sympathy and like understanding where they're at and putting myself in their shoes. But focusing on the problems, focusing on the grievances, and often feeling pessimistic about the future is not something I can relate to. But that's a lot of times how people just live. And it's sad, it's disappointing. I feel for those people. But that's that being stuck. That's kind of staying in that hurt place and not kind of starting to do the little things that can kind of put you on this healing journey. It sounds easy. It's not, but, I think we know these people where it's just like everything's a bad idea. I could never do that. And they'll give you 100 reasons why and 100 excuses why you can't do it. And it's like, okay. Or just keep doing this because it looks like it's going really well, right? Don't say that, by the way. I've done that many times. And then I get attacked right back, right? And then here is no surprise, poor communication, right? They may struggle to express themselves or engage in harmful communication patterns like blame or defensiveness. To the point I was just making, I have had the conversations where unsolicited I have provided some suggestions. As no surprise to anyone, I have thoughts on things. I have lived experience on things. I've seen things that worked. I've seen things that didn't work. I've been in graduate school for counseling. I've worked in treatment centers. I've worked with people one-on-one. I do this podcast. I spend a lot of time in the helping profession. And so sometimes I will offer suggestions. And sometimes I get my head bit off for offering those suggestions as well, too. And I'm like, whoa. Like, sorry. Maybe I was wrong to do that. I apologize. But it doesn't warrant kind of you attacking me and getting defensive about this, right? So, they like to throw the blame back over and get defensive, and the guard goes up. And that's just a sign that you're dealing with someone who's not healed, right? They're hurt still. They're hurting. Understand it. Like, they're still hurting. They're not going to come out and say that. It's going to be hidden under the anger and kind of shame and guilt and all that type of stuff. But that's what's going on right there, just so you're aware when you bump into these people. Last two things on kind of the unhealed persons as well, too, is that avoidance of responsibility, right? So they're blaming the other people, and they're refusing to acknowledge their role in any of these conflicts as well, too. This one's always been a doozy for me, too. It's like, hey, you showed up late again to drop, the child off or blah, 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 blah. Well, you were late that one time. You did the thing. And it's like, whoa. Like, wait a second. Like, come on. Like, hold on a second. I'm just talking about this specific instance with you, right? And I know I'm getting attacked for this. It's like, come on now. Let's slow the roll a little bit. So they refuse to kind of acknowledge their role in that conflict. Again, traits of someone who's unhealed. Like, we all know those folks, right? So that blame thing is strong, very strong, right? So last but not least on this, they neglect the self-care, right? So they may ignore their health. They may ignore their well-being. And this is going to lead to further issues as well, too, right? These are the folks that are then, you get into, it's like that negative spiral that we've heard talked about before, right? You're not eating right. You're not sleeping right. You're not hitting the gym. You're not exercising. You're not doing all those things, and you're just going to continue to head down the tube. And now the world's kind of getting in and darker and caving in. I mean, look, that neglecting of self-care is just another sign of that person who's been hurt, and they're still hurt, right? So let's just let that all settle in for a minute and kind of digest it. Now, again, I challenge you at the beginning of the show to think about, are you the healed version of this person or the unhealed person when you hear all these types of things? Now, let's piggyback on some of the reasons why, it's easy to go somewhat, you need to heal or you need to get better. There's reasons, like legitimate reasons. I wouldn't call them legitimate, but there are reasons why they choose not to heal, right? And so the number one thing is denial. So that refusal to acknowledge the need for healing or that existence of the underlying issues, right? I mean, they're just going to say, nah, don't want to, not interested, don't need to, right? Don't need to, I'm good. I get that a lot. I'm good. No, you need to change. That whole thing is like, whoa. So I've stopped trying to engage in those types of dialogue. They go nowhere, and in fact, probably set you back further with that person as well, if anything. And this is one that I've observed as well, too, is like they're often so distracted kind of within their own life, whether it's phone, the dinging, the email, the kids, the work, the job, the da-da-da. It's like they use that stuff as a way to focus and go, I'm so important. I've got so much going on that I don't even need to work on all this stuff that's going on over here, right? So it's just, these are the reasons why they choose not to. And I would be strategic and use a therapist or a counselor in order to try and help move someone to this healing journey, if you will, too. But here's the one that they really probably won't tell you that it may be the number one thing is that fear of change, right? the anxiety about the unknown or the discomfort that comes with change. Change is hard. Change is scary. It's hard. It sucks. You're in a room crying by yourself. Things are not going your way, but you're getting sick and tired of getting stuck in that same thing. So when you make that commitment to change, and then, by the way, it takes a long time. It's not like, all right, I want to change, and then you wake up tomorrow and you're healed. It doesn't work like that. It's a day by day, hour to hour, minute by minute, week to week, month to month, whatever you want to call it, process to get to the other side of healed mountain, if you want to call it that, right? Now, here's another one that was like, I can't afford the therapist, so it's like the lack of resources thing, right? So, I can't get the therapy. I don't have the support systems. I don't have the education for this. Well, look, AA is free. There's outpatient therapies. There's insurance that covers, kind of mental health and group settings and things like that that's relatively cost effective. You can go to church settings oftentimes and find some clergy that's probably going to give you some good advice if that's a thing. And if a worst case scenario, go to your friends and family that you trust. But don't pick the ones that have a mess in their own life. Let's pick the ones that have somewhat organized life and they can kind of get you going on a better direction, right? So don't use that as an excuse, as a crutch to not want to change and kind of start this process, right? So the next thing would be the external influences. So, negative environments or relationships that perpetuate harmful behavior and thoughts, right? We know the folks who are stuck in those, the marriages or the boyfriend, girlfriend things, and it's just ugly. I mean, we know it. We've probably all, I don't know, maybe not everybody has. Maybe I'm stretching too far, but I think a lot of us have been in these. And some, are especially negative and painful and harmful as well, too. So that's a reason why. All the more reason, if you're in one of those, seek some external help or guidance from someone. Because when you're in the thick of it, you're not able to see these. You got the horse with the blinders on kind of thing. But if you're able to grab a therapist, a counselor, or something, and they're able to kind of get you to look at things from a new perspective and go, oh, wow, yeah, you've got some bad people in your sphere right here. So you to make this change, to start on this healing thing, that's going to be really difficult. Next up on the list is internal resistance. So, maybe you have some deep-seated beliefs or traumas that are creating resistance to healing. I mean, I've done a whole episode on not everything is trauma, but there legitimately is trauma that can hold you back from starting to get on this process. But let's not let that thing completely stop you. Get some help, start working through that, and start just moving in that direction. I'm not saying you may never get past it. I don't know. I can't speak from those deep-seated trauma positions. But I do know that if you address them and start moving in a direction, life will get better. That part I have seen enough time and time again with folks. It's not going to be perfect, but you're going to make progress in a positive direction, right? And we can get past some of those internal resistance things that are going on. And last but not least, and maybe the most common as to why someone wouldn't want to even start this, they don't want to. They're lacking motivation. They just flat out don't want to. They're fine, or they think they are fine where they're at. So they don't have kind of the drive, they don't have the motivation, they don't have the energy to even want to start to undertake this entire process, right? And that's a tough one to do because you can push and push and push and push. And sometimes I think that can work. I've seen it work in kind of the addiction world. When it comes to just healing, I don't know if you can just flat out push someone into starting this process. Maybe it's probably going to be case by case. But I would encourage you to offer support, offer to take them somewhere, offer them to connect them somewhere, be available when they call. So when you do catch that little window where maybe they're open to it, that you can take advantage and get them into counseling or get them into wherever they need to be to kind of help start this process, right? So it's not perfect, but look, some people just don't want to. They're just content with their crappy little life, and that's what they want to do. And that's sad to say that, but unfortunately, that's just the reality of a lot of this is. Look, there's a lot more that I could say and going on into kind of the healed and unhealed persons. I had even more show notes, but I think you get the gist of the picture today. I encourage you to do a little bit more research if you're going to a therapist. Bring this topic up to them and be like, I want to get on this here. And if you're going to a therapist, hopefully you already are on that. Or maybe you're just thinking about getting into counseling and be like, I feel like I'm just been stuck in the same thing forever. I want to start on this process. Think about it. Share this episode with somebody else. Think about who you are now after hearing me kind of talk about the healed person and the unhealed person, and figure out exactly maybe which path you are on, and see what you are willing to do to kind of hopefully start on a little better path. So, thought that was a really interesting topic. Wanted to dump all that on you today. Hope you got something out of it. And it's good stuff. Anyways, my name is Steve Moak. I am the Unlicensed Counselor. Till next time, thank you very much.